Hello, I'm Aki Mäkivirta. I'm head of R&D at Genelec, and today I would like to give you a short tour of our Aural ID technology. Normally we monitor using loudspeakers because that gives you access to the concept that's called virtual sound image, and a lot of the recording work and studio work is actually that of creating virtual sound images and how they interact in your soundstage. This is something that you don't have access to if you're using headphones. And the reason for this is that when you put headphones on your head, then all the apparatus that is actually creating you the sense of where audio is located is taken away. That capacity is given to you by the shape of your external ear, how audio is reflected of your external ear, the size of your head, and some reflections of your upper body. So these all combine to create the information that your brain actually automatically decodes to direction of audio. If you've been working with audio, then you understand that if you have a reflection or diffraction and it's added to your audio, that's actually changing the sound color. And that's exactly what's happening also when audio is coming to your ears and it gets diffracted and reflected, so sound color is changing. But the interesting thing is that this is automatically decoded as direction of audio by your brain. And now this actually means that this process is totally unique to every single individual, because your head size and shape is not the same as your neighbor's. Your external ear has a different shape. And when all of these different things combine to create you the sense of direction of audio, it's unique to you. In order to be able to have this experience, you need exactly your head shape, your external ear shape, and your upper body shape. And you've been studying this for your whole life. I mean, you live with this daily, and that's the apparatus that is completely working with your brain, and it makes complete sense to you. So when you are using headphones, then all of this is taken away and you no longer have access to this mechanism. And this means that when you are using headphones, all audio somehow seems to be inside your head. And this also means that when you're using headphones for monitoring, then many things actually become much more difficult for you, because you don't exactly understand how things are now working in this new situation with the headphones over your head, and with this method of understanding direction of audio taken away from you. This gives uncertainty about location of audio. You can still understand something about the location of audio. Something can be on the left side or on the right side. You can understand about color of audio, but you can't be exactly sure, because part of your hearing system has been eliminated when you use headphones. This is the reason why there are certain limitations to what kind of work you can do when you're using headphone-based monitoring. Now, headphones are a wonderful device because basically when you're using headphones, then you can have your own space. You can have silence, you can have much more dynamic range, the maximum sound level can be higher. So you have access to dynamics in a way that it may be difficult to have with loudspeaker-based monitoring. So there are certain strong points that are available to you when you're using headphones, but then you have this difficulty. At Genelec, we started to find a solution to enhance the use of headphones for monitoring and to provide technology that would enable you to do a lot of the same things that you can do with loudspeakers when you're using headphones for monitoring. In order to do that, we would need to understand a great deal about you, about the individual who is using headphones for monitoring. We have to understand how your shape, your external ear, your head, your shoulders are modifying audio. In order to do this, we have to either take measurements by inserting microphones in your ears to understand how audio is being modified when it arrives to your ears from a certain direction. Or then we have to be able to calculate that effect. And it's the calculation path that Genelec has chosen as a way of solving this problem. In order to get that information, we actually devised a method of using video to calculate this information. That becomes your head-related transfer function information. And this is your personal fingerprint that you need to know about in order to understand how audio is presented to you from different directions. So for Aural ID creation, the first step is to use the mobile app that enables you to capture the video around your head, and then we can use this video footage to calculate an exact shape of you using photogrammetric methods. And knowing the shape, we can then calculate how audio is being reflected and diffracted, and we can actually calculate the imprint that you will have on audio from different directions. That is all part of the Aural ID profile production. So when you capture the footage and you place the order for Aural ID, that's exactly what we do. It takes us a couple of days to do this and to provide you your Aural ID profile that contains this information from over 800 different directions. And then we also provide you with the plug-in software that you can use for processing audio, rendering audio for headphones using this information. This plug-in software that we provide installs into your DAW, but it's not a regular type of effect that you would buy as a plug-in. It's actually a preprocessor or rendering engine for headphone monitoring. In order to use this, you pass the same channels of audio that you would normally pass into your loudspeakers. You pass those same channels into the plugin, and then the plugin creates virtual loudspeakers at the correct locations relative to you, and this then extracts the correct presentation of those using your Aural ID information, your head-related transfer function, in order to present the audio correctly to you when you're wearing headphones. So in order to use the plugin, what you would do is you first select the channel layout that you want to use. You then go and you individually check and calibrate the locations of the virtual loudspeakers to make sure that everything is presented correctly for you. You can even fine-tune your own location as a listener, the way you are positioned relative to the loudspeakers, whether you're looking up or down, or how you are located relative to the loudspeakers. Then you can go forward and you can calibrate the sound color presentation for the whole system. We actually give you a very powerful parametric EQ set to do this. What you can do is you can actually go and using familiar material to you, you can evaluate what you hear, and you can then adjust the filters so that you get a familiar neutral presentation of audio. Or if you wish, you can actually compare that to a loudspeaker-based monitoring system, and you can fine-tune your listening so that it sounds the same as your loudspeaker system in your favorite monitoring space. We also give you tools to bring in Genelec loudspeaker calibration from the GLM system if you want to use that as a guideline for doing this kind of color calibration that can achieve the same sound balance as you would experience in your listening room. So having gone through these calibration steps of finding the correct locations for the virtual loudspeakers, ensuring that your orientation relative to the loudspeakers is familiar to you, and then calibrating the sound color so that the presentation is familiar to you in terms of sound color balance. You can bring your headphone-based monitoring much closer to loudspeaker-based monitoring, and because you're using your own way of hearing audio, your own head-related transfer function in the process, you get a much better externalization. You can actually hear the audio coming from the direction where it's supposed to come from in reality. This process is actually something that you can learn and adapt to over time. So I actually propose that once you set up this initially, then you would use familiar material to understand whether everything is in place, whether everything is accurate for you. And then maybe a couple of days later, you would come back and you would revisit the calibration, again check the locations of the virtual loudspeakers, the sound color balance, and you would be able to improve the personal calibration of your headphone-based monitoring system. One reason why this kind of process is important is because the headphone itself is a big factor here. All headphones are slightly different, and the way you hear audio with a certain pair of headphones is also a function here. So for a certain pair of headphones, you can achieve calibration that is valid, and then if for whatever reason you change to another type of headphone, it would make a lot of sense to revisit the calibration just to ensure that the locations and sound color presentation remain accurate. So using this kind of approach, you can get much closer to understanding audio in the same way, with the same precision as with loudspeaker-based monitoring. And this really empowers headphone-based monitoring to serve in many new tasks that traditionally have not been possible when using headphones. What we believe is that Aural ID can really empower professionals to do a lot of work in a mobile fashion. Particularly if you don't have access to a monitoring space, you would be able to use headphones to do some of that work. You would be able to check some mixes using headphones much more reliably than you would normally be able to do. And you would be able to gain mobility in an entirely new way and a new level compared to the traditional way where you have to have access to a studio that is familiar to you in order to do any kind of more detailed work with the mix. I believe that this is going to be a potentially very useful addition to the toolset of the professionals.